What's going on, everybody? I'm your boy Numbskull, and today we're going on yet another adventure into the depths of Erowid's experience vaults. This time, I wanted to read a fairly detailed report that I noticed on a specific drug combination I've always found interesting but have actually yet to try myself: LSDXM. LSDXM is the name given to the combo of LSD and DXM. These substances are quite powerful on their own, but together they're a whole different beast. Think a DXM or DPH trip compared to a counterflip experience. The whole vibe and trip change in a very cool way. Now, before we start, I want to apologize once again if you can hear my heater. Sorry about that. The last one, it didn't pick it up on the last one. Shouldn't pick it up on this one, but just in case, I'm gonna apologize. Let's get into it. This first report is going to be coming from Dizzy on Erowid, or the only report. Dose 450 milligrams DXM orally via liquid. One hit sublingual of LSD via a blotter/tab. Repeated hits smoked cannabis flower. Gender not specified. Age at time of experience 25. Experience year 2019. Body weight 140 pounds. Time traveling by way of vomit. An LSDXM trip report. About a year and a half ago, I had what was probably the most intense psychedelic experience of my life, both for me and for my two partners, one an experienced psychonaut and the other less so, who for the sake of anonymity we'll call Bodega and Shrink, respectively. If this night taught me anything, it was to never, ever mix substances on the first try. Before this, my experiences were for the most part a whole lot of pot, more than my fair share of acid, and a few encounters with MDMA and 2CB. The setting would be our one-bedroom apartment, which we turned into a cozy trip den, with a sectional couch, a modest entertainment center, and along the walls a string of colorful lights and paintings from trips past. The night had started off on a good step. Moods were high, and upon a quick trip to the local drugstore, Bodega had the idea to introduce me to his newest friend, an unassuming red bottle of cough syrup. We bought one for each of us and headed straight home, me being beyond excited to try DXM, which up until now had been described to me as like acid but drunk. Upon arrival at home, we busted out both bottles, and between periods of flirting and setting out activities for the soon-to-be trippy evening, we downed a capful each of about every 20 minutes. That's a weird way to say that. By the time I had finished my bottle and was feeling just a little woozy, I looked up from my seat at the dining room table to see Bodega's hand outstretched in an offering, a small white tab sitting on a torn piece of foil. The familiar feeling of the tab slipping under my tongue was like an old friend to me. I went and cuddled with Shrink on the couch, who had abstained from the cough syrup, but had partaken loosely with Bodega and I. Shortly after, we took turns by the window sharing a one-hitter. I'd quickly set up my art supplies to paint, my ritual with acid being that I would rest on the couch beneath the rainbow of fairy lights, waiting for about 40 or so minutes, after which I'd find my way to the canvas and proceed to become completely lost in my own world of unhindered creativity. That night I barely made it off the couch, as after seating myself, the realization of how much I'd just done hit me. Everything began to be lost in a bright rainbow haze as I only went up and up and up. Eventually, with a little prodding from Bodega, who'd been excited to see what I'd create this time, I ambled over to the canvas where immediately after sitting down, my head met the canvas as I slumped against our big desk. Nausea was hitting me hard, and I was struggling to move, my world becoming an indiscernible lava lamp, form bubbling from below into mushrooms and stars as Bodega and Shrink moved me to the bedroom. I was completely gone at this point, if not at least euphoric, having no idea what was going on, but just happy to be there when I promptly projectile vomited onto the bed. Before I knew it, I was on all fours on the floor, suddenly rocketed back to my senses somewhat as I found myself staring into a bowl. I puked again. The Chinese food I'd eaten earlier that day was now a cloudy white soup in front of me, an undigested mushroom swimming and pulsating through the milky matter like a jellyfish. I was moved again, now lying on the living room floor next to a mass of vomit-covered blankets and covers that my partners had hastily removed from the bedroom just a moment before. Only recognizing the bundle as something to cling onto as nausea once again shook me, I did exactly that, only to be pried off of them by Bodega. I then attempted to get up only to lose my balance and fall backward over the couch and onto the floor on the other side. I looked at my partners and said, in my vision and speech beginning to break up and lag, stuttered that I was glitched out before, as they describe, collapsing onto the floor only to get up, crab walk in a random direction, collapse, get up, crab walk, collapse, and rinse and repeat, looking to my two partners like I'd been possessed, like The Exorcist. What I was experiencing at this point, upon the initial collapse, a complete sensory disconnect with reality. As I lay there, I was in a black void. 4 moving textures appeared before me, divided into 4 squares. One of stone, one of carpet, one of rushing water, and one at this point I can't recall or describe. I could only hear the sound of my own breathing, wondering all the while what had become of me. Was I dead? No, I decided. I must have lost control and begun to flee out of the apartment and down the hallway. Soon I'd be arrested and my life would be over. Clearly this was the only thing that could come of this, I had decided, before being suddenly surfaced into consciousness. I'd attempted to get up, to crawl backward before my vision would freeze in place and shrink, the snapshot moving into the corner of the black void. Again I'd come to consciousness, trying again in vain to get up before my vision froze, and a second snapshot would join that first in the corner. This occurred over and over, a mosaic of frames gathering on the right side of my field of view before I came to once again, this time bundled in blankets on the floor. I looked up, seeing Shrink looking over me, his face expressionless and grim. I remember him looking so old in that moment, the lines of his face pronounced beneath the technicolor lights flowing from his face onto the geometry of the patterned drug rug he'd been wearing. I attempted to speak to him, but instead my left arm spasmed, flopping back uselessly over my head. I went under again, the events of the night playing out of order before me on a mangled mess of film. At some point I found myself reliving an uncomfortable moment from a trip from months before where I'd acted in a way I regretted, behaving the time immaturely, paranoid of the 2 people I loved more than anything. I came back again somewhat only to watch myself in third person, babbling about time travel, puking into the blankets I'd been bundled in over and over, only to fold the blankets over the puke like that would somehow make it go away. Gone again, I became a clock, or maybe a set of gears, spinning in the void, hitching like something wasn't quite right, like a spanner had been thrown into the works. Back to consciousness for a moment, laying against the couch, my clothes and the blankets now gone. I could see Bodega next to me, naked, his eyes closed. Outside the sliding glass door, past the balcony, I could see an alien skyline of rounded blue buildings. The entertainment center had become 2 glowing, bulbous orange cones, dripping with gooey, viscous moisture. I went under one last time, this time becoming a chain spinning through the gears, a tooth missing in the chain, or was it the chain was missing a link? Spinning, 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 until something caught, and like a string finally going through the eye of a needle, like a hook in a loop, with a yoink I came back. 2 baby blue eyes stared into mine. They didn't look human at first. The immediate recognition of contact, not registering at first before, click, I realized it was Bodega leaning over me, his expression intense and focused. I attempted to speak, choking on my words at first, struggling to move as if coming back from sleep paralysis. Now you got me choking on my words. I sputtered out his name. Shrink's voice came meekly from the couch as I made my way to my feet. Don't freak out, but we think you might have had a psychotic break. After a long stare at myself in the mirror and a lot of cleaning, my night for the most part ended. Most of the more intense effects having worn off at this point, which had been approximately 5 hours after dosing. Bodega and Shrink went on to drop more acid, wanting to have a little more fun that night to make up for having to babysit me through my journey. I retired to the couch to reflect on what I'd experienced and how we could improve at managing crises like this one. Since that day I've mostly avoided mixing substances and have yet to work up the courage to try DXM again, though I do want to try it by itself at least once, next time with a lot more preparation and forethought. And that is the end of the report, ladies and gentlemen. It's definitely a different experience combining these drugs than separately. This is one of those combos that doesn't just layer effects, but rather changes the entire experience altogether. The weed also most certainly played a big part in this one. I'm curious of what the exact reason is that causes such a flip. even more inspiration and reason to research and try this combo out myself. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please like and consider subscribing. Every little bit helps this channel out a ton. And comment letting me know if you've personally ever had an encounter with this combo, or either drug on its own. Or just let me hear your thoughts on my channel as a whole. If I'm doing something wrong, I want to know so I can fix it. And if I'm doing something right, also let me know so I know I'm headed in the right direction. Pop on those post notifications too to make sure you don't miss any new content. And with that, I will of course see you all in the next one. Peace!